I get very upset when I hear someone say, "Oh, you're advanced." I bet that's hard. I love it here.
Yeah.
And so what I say is, come walk the building with me when the kids are here
Yeah.
and see what you think. So, perception's a lot of it.
Many parents every day face the difficulty of deciding which type of education they should send their children to. This short film evaluates the aspects of both public and private education and helps determine which is the best alternative. For my research, I compared information, listened to students, and spoke to many different authority figures in the Charlotte area. With this new knowledge, I was able to understand the debate and help break the misconception that one education is better than the other, breaking false ideas and bringing the real answers of education. So for the first interview, I headed over to Butler High School to meet with Mr. LeGrand. The questions that I asked him were the same questions I asked other principals from other high schools, and he strongly believed that public schools are more beneficial than private.
Well, I think private schools, of course, operate by a little different rules than we do.
Right.
Whereas in public school, we are required to go by a certain curriculum and a pacing guide, and they probably have a little more flexibility due to that fact. But I feel like private school doesn't have all the different guidelines that we have on who they can hire. So they may hire someone that's not certified or may never taught before.
Then I had an on-the-phone interview with Mr. Telford. Mr. Telford is the principal at Charlotte Catholic. Something that he explained to me is how students can get accepted into a private school.
The difference lies if you're, let's say, you go to Carmel Middle School and you decide you want to go to Charlotte Catholic. We don't necessarily have to take you. Well, at Rocky River, if you live near Rocky River and you happen to move in just before it could be your 12th grade year, they can't say we're too crowded.
One of the things that he mentioned is that in private schools, oftentimes a certain level, a certain year is filled up with other students. Usually in public schools, they have bigger classrooms, bigger buildings, and this is a greater advantage. I also had the chance to interview Mrs. Royal. She's a private school principal at Hickory Grove. Something that she mentioned that is a huge benefit for private schools is religion.
Because we are a Christian school, all of our teachers are believers in Christ.
Okay.
So that is a huge difference.
This does greatly impact the environment at schools when all the administrators, teachers, and students believe in the same thing. But is that a positive or can that be a negative? In public schools, yeah, sometimes students don't all believe the same thing, but this is one of the great things about public schools where diversity is included. Someone else I got to interview was Mrs. Ray.
I think the experience the public school kids get is much more diverse.
Okay.
And you learn to work with, collaborate with, become friends with kids that are of different ethnicities.
Right.
Just a wide variety.
Right.
And sometimes you don't get that in the private schools.
And to conclude my interviews, I talked to two different students. The first student I spoke to mentioned that she felt way more comfortable in a private school rather than a public school.
Private school, I like that it was one teacher and you had the same students in every class.
The second student was also a strong believer about private schools.
There's usually like uniforms or like a strict dress code.
Okay.
And it's also like not that many fights, not that much problems and stuff.
He said that in public schools, students get to learn what the real world is like.
Like you get to deal with different kind of people, different kind of students, the teachers, and like you have to learn how to handle yourself and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that gives you a better world perspective.
Now, what does all this information mean? I interviewed several teachers, I interviewed several students, and they all gave me their opinions. But there's one thing that they all agreed on. There's no such thing that determines one school being better than the other. It's all about a student's personal motivations. So a student's success mainly depends on the teacher quality and not per se the fact that they're going to a public school or the fact that they're going to a private school.
Correct. I absolutely believe that. It doesn't matter where you go. If the quality of the teacher is strong, students who are average will do above average. Good students will become outstanding students, and students who struggle won't struggle as much.
If the teachers feel supported, the students have very consistent structures and feel that people care about them, the school's going to be successful.
It depends on what your goals are, what kind of person that you are.
If they take it upon themselves to take advantage of what's laid out in front of them, you know, and if they take advantage of this and they make a choice to, hey, I'm going to reap the benefits of what's being offered to me, I think it's the sky's the limit. It's not going to be something that holds them back.
The real answer on education is if a student is motivated, if they're ready to work, and if they're willing to put in the work, they will be successful. Both schools do have their advantages and different opportunities, but what really matters is a student's self-motivation.